back. You're watching HLN Now. Mike Colanos. You see the headline there. Hot car death. What we have here, again, it's just unthinkable. 22-month-old little Cooper Harris left in a car to die. His dad, who's charged with the murder of his son, says it was an accident. He was distracted and forgot. Prosecutors say no, it was on purpose, and this man should be charged and convicted of murder. And we're still taking in that probable cause/bond hearing we heard Thursday, and all the different details the prosecutors brought to table as they believe they have enough to charge this man with murder. We want to hear what you have to say about this. This was a story we shared with each other. We talked about it. It was the unthinkable. Let me introduce you to our expert panel joining us once again as we take your calls, your comments on this one. Joining us, HLN legal analyst, great criminal defense attorney Joey Jackson, psychotherapist and author Robbie Ludwig with us as well. And we have another great attorney with us, Pate, joining us. And then again, you guys are the star of the show. We want to hear what you have to say. We'll bounce it off our experts and we'll continue on as we, again, just can't fathom what we heard on Thursday. And we'll also be talking about the mom/wife, Leanna Harris, as well. But let's go to the phones. Wayne is with us in Florida. Wayne, what are your thoughts about this case and what you heard on Thursday?
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Wayne.
I was just curious. I haven't heard anything at all about the actual temperature of the day. And obviously, to me at least, and probably everybody else, it was premeditated. So is there any evidence that, you know, he may have looked at his computer and looked at the weather predictions, and was it a hot day that day? Was the day before or after, 20 degrees cooler? I'm interested on the temperature of the day and why he would have chose it.
Great question, Wayne, and that kind of deals with a planning front. Joey, on that front, from my knowledge, that was June 18th. It was into the 90s here in Georgia. And with that humidity, it would not take long, obviously, for that car to be suffocating. Medical examiner, they believe that little Cooper was dead before noon that day. What else tells you, hinting at planning here, Joey, as we heard some more evidence from the prosecutors on Thursday?
Sure, and I have to tell you, Mike, Wayne raises a very good point, and I think jurors are going to be focused on that very issue as well. Now, remember that they just scratched the surface of the investigation. The probable cause hearing is just that, to determine whether he's being lawfully detained so that it could go forward to the next process of indictment, etc. So they didn't give us everything, but I certainly suspect as the investigation unfolds, they continue to do more computer searches, we'll hear a lot more in terms of searches that he may have done, and who knows, Wayne may be onto something. They may come across a search that relates to weather patterns or those such things. To this point, we haven't heard it, but stay tuned because I think they'll release a lot more, Mike, as they move forward and potentially even upgrade the charges to include count 1, which is the intentional capital felony.
Yeah, and that deals with some of these other internet searches. Robbie, a lot of people wonder, and not only Dad, Ross Harris here, but Mom, Leanna, as well, searching children dying in hot cars, animals dying in hot cars, watching a veterinarian sit in a hot car. All of that prior to Cooper's death. Why would anybody go there?
Well, it makes me wonder if this was a couple that really wanted kids in the first place. Was Cooper a planned child? Or did they think they wanted children and then they realized how difficult it was and changed their mind? It does sound like the mother somehow is involved or she's just a little bit too supportive of her husband under the circumstances. So, she's acting in a very suspicious way.
Got it. And we'll deal with her more as the day goes on. What incriminates her? Again, she's part of the investigation at this point, not thought of as a suspect at this time. Let's get another call in. Lori's with us in Missouri. Hi, Lori, your thoughts here?
Mike, I'm devastated over this. I am just totally devastated. That little boy, if just one person would have heard him scream, just one person, they could have saved that little boy's life. He looked up how to survive in prison. Did he look up how child killers and pedophiles and child molesters survive in prison? Because they do not.
Lori, thanks for the call. So many of you share that emotion. This one, as we heard the details, and Paige, that's something, if this goes to trial, a juror's going to have to deal with. You've got allegedly Dad telling Mom in a police station, oh, he was peaceful, but then you hear the medical examiner talk about scratches on this little guy's face and abrasions on the back of his head as you figure he's trying to free himself and get out of this car seat. That's tough. Those are tough details for a juror to deal with, aren't they?
The scratches to me were really the most damning of everything that we heard. And I think Laurie is very right. I think jurors are going to have a visceral reaction to that type of evidence, especially if you have children. It's something that it's going to be tough to put that aside and simply try to balance the evidence and see if the state has proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And the prosecutor knows that. They will try to couple that very emotional evidence with enough facts to cobble together their case at trial.
There you go. Let's get another call in. Charlene is with us in Texas. Hey, Charlene, your thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlene.
I'm just thinking, if you are not thinking about committing a crime, you're a law-abiding person, and you haven't been convicted of committing a crime, why would you be on the site, How to Survive in Prison? And the second thought, that site makes me think, we all know child molesters and child murderers have the worst time in prison, and I think that he was on that site strictly because he wanted to make sure if he got convicted, he could survive in prison.
Well, there you go. And that's, hey, Joey, that gets us back to these internet searches, whether it be what Charlene just mentioned, how to survive in prison, whether it be animals in hot cars, children in hot cars, or what could be most damning, just again on that visceral reaction, child-free life. You're looking up 4 articles on living child-free when you got this beautiful 22-month-old?
Mike, this is damning evidence, and certainly Charlene speaks to the issue of what jurors are going to be thinking about. Now, jurors can't make assumptions, Mike, but what they could do is they can draw inferences that are reasonable from the facts. What would a normal person do? Would a normal person not engage potentially in premeditation, and it's criminal negligence now, but if they elevate it to intention, what will they say? They'll say child-free life. What does that go to? It goes to planning. Surviving in prison. What does that go to? It goes to planning. Watching other people die, looking at those sites. What does that go to? It goes to his state of mind. So this is going to be a lot for the defense to overcome at the time of trial, Mike, should it go that far.
There you go. And another point for the defense to overcome as we move on in this is you forgot that your child was in your car when you had breakfast with him literally seconds before.
Right.
Seconds before. We'll talk about them when we come back. More of your calls lined up as well. You guys have great questions. Keep them coming. You know the number. 1-877-TEL-HLN. Tweet me at Mike Alanos HLN.
Now, in speaking with him and from looking through the text messages and chats with his wife and things like that, were they having any type of financial difficulty?
They were.
What type?
She was complaining about his purchasing, sporadic purchasing or overcharging credit cards.
Now, who was in control of the finances at this time?
He was.
Did he tell you anything about his finances?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
He stated that the finances were fine, that they had recently charged up $4,000 on a credit card, and he had done that for the airline miles.
Welcome back. You're watching HLN Now. There you heard one of the detectives talking about potential motive, financial trouble. Then we come to find out $27,000 in life insurance policies if Cooper were to die. And there's also reports that from jail, Ross Harris, the dad who's charged with his son's murder, is talking to family about how to cash in on that. Pate, is that number 1 motive? Finances? Get 27 grand for the death of your child?
It's hard to believe that anyone would kill their child for $27,000. I mean, it's inconceivable to most people. I think the state is really looking right now for enough evidence, as Joey suggested earlier, to change that negligence charge into an intentional child cruelty charge. I know this district attorney. I think he's probably reluctant to indict this man for murder based upon simple negligence. So I think he'll use the financial information, the insurance policy, the child-free lifestyle, whatever he can to suggest that there was more than simple negligence in this case.
There you go. Here's a Facebook comment from Tina, same line of fire here. Why would his wife stay with him knowing he cheats? There's one point, but then getting to the money. Is there a hidden life insurance policy? $27,000 isn't much for your child's life. Robbie Ludwig, I mean, that's the bottom line point here. 27 grand?
You would be amazed what amount of money people would kill for. And it's always, you know, it's not necessarily a lot of money, but it's way more money than people could get in any other way. And I just want to say it is very unusual for parents to take out a life insurance policy on their child. Usually parents take it out on themselves so that their children can be, you know, financed for in the event that anything happens. But to take out a life insurance policy on a child is just really very, very unusual, and again, very suspicious under the circumstances.
That's a good point. Let's get back to the phones, guys. Cynthia's with us in Florida. Cynthia, your thoughts, comment, question?
Yes, hi. Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Great.
And Joey and everybody else on your team?
Yeah, go ahead, Cynthia.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mike, I was calling in regards to the detective. How come he is not getting enough recognition? I mean, he was an outstanding detective, and everything was so precise when he was on the stand. I mean, he caught things that a group of detectives wouldn't have been able to pick up. And I say this because I'm a former reserve police officer from Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm just saying, why is there not enough praise?
Got it. Well,
About the detective instead.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for the question. Joey, she's right there. I mean, we're talking about what Detective Stoddard had to say more than him himself, but he was very buttoned up and was not rattled even by a tough defense attorney as well.
And I think there were a couple of reasons for that, Mike. The first thing is he admitted the limitations that he had at that given time. He was saying under cross-examination, well, I haven't explored everything. There are things yet to come. He wasn't a know-it-all at all. He just expressed what they had to this point at the probable cause hearing. To Cynthia's point, as matters unfold and he gets, more information out there in the event that it goes to trial, certainly he'll be, recognized for his efforts. We respect all our law enforcement officers, but at the time of trial, I would suspect, Mike, if it goes to trial, that he's going to be challenged very vigorously by the defense, and they'll try to discredit him in any way that they potentially can. But he did, to Cynthia's point, do a very good job at laying out the case thus far for the state.
There you go. Let's get it back to the phones. Kim is with us in Illinois. Hey, Kim, your thoughts here?
Hi, yes. I think it's very crucial that the detectives pull the phone records from the nursery, because I actually worked at a place that supplies food to the nurseries, and the nursery has to be notify the company that supplies the food every day of how many people are in the nursery that day and any allergies that must be aware of. And if you notice that they text the father at 1:30 p.m., and if they check it, most likely that was the second phone call from the nursery to see if the child, poor baby Cooper, was going to show up in daycare the next day.
There you go. And Paige, that's what a lot of people are delving into, the routine and a dad being notified and no response, basically, from Ross Harris.
Right, and I think it is unusual for, as I understand it, law enforcement to have alleged that he made a call to the daycare moments after he discovered that his child was dead. I thought that was very unusual. Why would that be one of the first things that you do once you've noticed that you've left your child in the car? And I'd like to go back to the last caller's question about this particular law enforcement officer. I've worked with this DA's office before. I've worked against them, actually, defending cases. They are very good. Chuck Boring, very methodical, very straightforward, very ethical. It's one of the better departments in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, well, they did their job, certainly on Thursday, and we're all taking it in. So are you. Keep your calls coming, and we're going to hit on that point. Again, many of you have made, and we'll talk about it, and we'll take you back to Thursday. How can you forget your son's in your car when you had breakfast with him seconds before? We'll talk about that and how damning it could be for Ross Harris. It's coming up.
He left the Chick-fil-A to that light where he had to make that decision. Have you driven that distance?
I have.
How many times?
10 at least.
How long does it take to get from having left the Chick-fil-A parking lot to that light?
30 to 40 seconds.
So 30 to 40 seconds from the time he has strapped his child in, kissed him, and then he says forgot.
Correct.
You're watching HLN Now. Many of you hung up on that point, as am I. You forgot your child was with you in 30 to 40 seconds. Here's a Facebook post from Ann Nielsen, and Ann, right on that same point. How far was the restaurant to his job? He forgot in that short of time? You just had breakfast with him. Again, 30 to 40 seconds. I'm going to let everybody weigh in on the panel, starting with you, Joey. 30, you're going to forget about him, and they point out in this small SUV, The little guy's right here, inches away.
Absolutely, and it's a very, very powerful point for the prosecution. First of all, we don't forget our children because they're near and dear to us and we love them so much. Second of all, the proximity of time that you just had breakfast, kissed them, as you said, you always do, and then all of a sudden, 30 seconds later, you don't know he's there. This, on the heels of the other evidence, Mike, is damning.
Robbie, can people, and you know the defense will argue, he was distracted. Life's going to hell in a handbasket. They got financial issues. He's sexting. He was just a mess.
Listen, it's possible if there weren't so many damning pieces of evidence suggesting otherwise. And I also wonder, this was a family that went to church. I wonder in this man's distorted mind if he was somehow having some final dinner or final meal with his son before sending him off to heaven. I mean, we have to consider that this man obviously is not wired correctly to do what he did or allegedly do what he did.
Hey, and Robbie, I think another point, rear-facing, it's like that is unusual for a 22-month-old to be rear-facing, and they pointed that out, that he had far exceeded, you know, the infant seat. That's an infant seat should be rear-facing, not a toddler, right?
Right, and also what's interesting is this father, when he did a search, if you look at the PDA commercial that he was looking at, where they actually show how long it takes for a child to die in a car, I couldn't even watch the whole thing because it was so disturbing. You saw this child helpless and sweating in the car, and you know what's going to happen next. So one wonders if in his mind he didn't want to see what he was doing, see the pain he was inflicting, and the best way to avoid it is to turn the child the other way.
There you
go.
go.
It is unusual.
Paige, I'm going to put you in the tough spot of being defense attorney. How do you argue? Where are the openings for argument here on behalf of Ross Harris?
Well, let's start with the car seat issue. I'm not sure that's as big of a deal as many people are saying. I understand that he had, in fact, purchased a proper car seat for the child, a forward-facing car seat, but they had decided to go back to the rear-facing one for whatever reason. Maybe the child wasn't comfortable enough with it yet. I have two young kids, two young boys, and I know that when you're making that initial transition, it's not necessarily where they want to be. So maybe he switched back, give them a little bit more time to become comfortable with it. Okay. On the other issue of forgetting that quickly, if you're going to forget your child, you're going to forget your child. I mean, think about somebody leaving the kid in the car to go into the mall shopping and they've forgotten about their child. Well, obviously that happens in an instant. So if he's going to forget the child and leave him in the car, I think that's just as possible to happen quickly as it is over a long period of time.
Paige trying to fight the good fight there again. Mostly 30 to 40 seconds. Paige makes the point on the other side. Okay, want to let everybody know we're going to take more calls coming up, bottom of the hour at 2:30, and we're going to zone in a little bit more on Mom, Leanna Harris, the wife here, and some of her comments, which are equally jaw-dropping when you talk about what she said, her reaction, even her demeanor in court. So that's coming up at 2:30, and don't forget at 3 p.m. Eastern, join Joey for On the Case. Much more on this that has captivated a nation coming up. Welcome back. You're watching HLN Now, keeping you updated on the latest and it's hard to even say the headline, hot car death, when you think of that beautiful little 22-month-old Cooper Harris dying in a hot car, June 18th, and his father, Ross, charged with his murder. We want to know what you have to say. We're taking your calls. Let's go back to the phones. 1-877-TEL-HLN is the number. Expert panel standing by the way. And Ben is with us in Massachusetts. Ben, your thoughts here?
How you doing, Mike?
Hey, great, Ben.
I'm a big fan of this show. I've been a big fan since the Court TV days of Vinnie Politan. But my comment to this, I listened to a detective get on the stand, and he made reference to the email this father had with these young ladies. And he asked one of these young ladies, well, the question was asked, do he have a conscience, the father, that is, regarding his marriage and his marriage proposals? He said in a one-word answer, no. I believe that spoke volumes to who he was as a person, not just his marriage vows. Because for your kid to be baking in a car while you're sexting and going about your everyday business at work, you would have to certainly be devoid of conscience. So again, I think it's overall who he is as a person in his mindset. It does not just pertain to his marriage and his marriage vows. I think this guy has no conscience, and he said it in a one-word answer.
There it was.
Very easily.
Yeah, one of the many points. Ben, thanks for calling in, and thanks for being a longtime viewer. We appreciate it. So there you go. Let's listen to that, by the way, to Ben's point. It was one of those moments where you're just like, wow. Again, what's laid out by the prosecutors is he's sexting while his little baby, little Cooper, is baking to death in a hot car. But here's what went down in court.
Did you uncover anything of what he was doing during that day while his child was out in the car?
Yes.
Okay. What did you uncover?
He was having up to 6 different conversations with different women.
He talks about being a guitar player with this girl. She asked him about cheating on his wife. Did she ask him a question about his conscience?
She did.
What did she ask him?
She asked.
She's who?
She's this other girl he is sexting with.
Thank you.
And she does. And
Objection. That's
Same
no way
response.
relevant to anything. Final question, he says, Mr. Kilgore. I'm going to allow a question and answer, and then we're moving on.
she says something to the effect of, "Do you have a conscience?"
And what was his response?
Nope.
And there it was. And that gets you back to motive. Robbie, I just got a tweet here, and it says, money was not the main motive. Child-free life, more of an incentive. So he could parade around with his 6+ women. What do you think of that?
Well, you can have both. You can be motivated by money and the desire to be child-free, and it sounds like this man cared more about himself and him living a life that felt free and exciting than being a parent. And when you are a parent, really the focus ideally is more on your child. Yes, you take care of yourself, but it requires a different level of maturity, which this man didn't have. And many women will say, hey, if a man tells you about himself, believe him. And it does sound like this man revealed who he was to at least one of the women he was texting, sexting, whatever he was doing during those moments.
Wow. That, again, unthinkable. Back to the phones. Lisa is with us in Pennsylvania. Hey, Lisa, your thoughts here?
Well, first, God rest little Cooper's soul. I think this was definitely premeditated. I worked days, nights at a hospital. My daughter went to daycare and babysitters. I worked 12-hour shifts. I never forgot my child, not ever. I think Cooper was given Benadryl, so he would sleep in the car in the beginning. And Mom's reaction at daycare, he must have left him in the car. And at the police station, did you say too much? It incriminates her. I would have wanted to kill him. Ooh. They could have had to hold me back from doing so. She incriminated herself in this doing of the son being killed. Hey. In court, chewing gum, no emotion. Your child is dead, lady, and you have no emotion. You're not a mother.
Wow. Lisa, thanks for the call. So many sharing that. And let's listen to that. Hey, Annette, let's listen to the, I think one of the key sound bites that we heard when she asked, did you say too much? That's key. Let's listen to that, and we'll let our experts weigh in.
As they're sitting there talking, and they're sitting there face to face, and they're left alone in the interview room, and he looks at her, and he's like, he looked peaceful.
Did he describe the mouth and eyes of this child?
He said Cooper's eyes were closed, his mouth was closed, and he just looked peaceful laying there. He goes, I dreaded how he would look.
Dreaded past tense.
As in past tense.
Dreaded what he would look like. Paige, I think the one that got me the most when you talk about what could happen with Leanne, again, part of the investigation, not a suspect here, let's make that clear, but did you say too much?
Right. It's very damaging evidence. I mean, it amazes me how many people who are being interrogated do not stop and think that they are being recorded even when there's no detective in the room. It happens a lot, and I see it come out in cases all of the time. The defense can't run away from this evidence. It is what it is. This is the type of statement that they're going to play during the course of the trial, so they've got to deal with it head on. Perhaps we're going to hear the full statements that were made while they were back in that interrogation room. Maybe there's a way to put it into context, but as it stands right now, that's going to be difficult to get around.
Joey, you see any context here? Did you say too much?
I see a context that the prosecution will argue that it was a conspiracy, right? As you mentioned, no, she's not a suspect, hasn't been arrested or anything, but you have to believe that an investigation is unfolding as we speak, and the investigators want to know what she knew and when she knew it. Did she conspire? Was she part of it? Why did she go to the daycare and say, oh, he must have left our son in the car? Is that the first thing you think about? Why did she go there to the precinct with her husband and say, did you speak too much? And why were they having the discussion that we're discussing now in terms of him saying in past tense, you know, he looked peaceful? And so the prosecutor is going to put this in the context of a conspiracy if they so choose.
There you go. Let's go back to the phones. Joyce is with us in Massachusetts. Hi, Joyce.
Hello.
Your thoughts here, Joyce?
When I first looked on the television, I seen the husband, and then I seen the wife. My first thoughts were, that guy looks like he's suffering. She looks like she could give two craps. You know, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, they had breakfast together, and maybe she dropped him off. Maybe she had the baby. Maybe she put the baby in the car without him knowing.
So you think she's going to get arrested? Is that what you're saying, Joyce?
Yeah.
You think
I mean,
so?
as far as the computers, she could be using his computer and her computer.
There you go. Okay.
And, yeah, he can be a freak. You know what I'm saying? But,
Well,
hey, a freak's a freak, but that doesn't make him a murderer.
Well, we'll see how it all unfolds. Joyce, thanks for the call. And again, more of this coming up. You're going to get more with Joey at 3 Eastern on the case, and more coming up right here as we unveil more of the highlights and what it could mean moving forward for Ross and Leanna Harris. Stay with us. Welcome back to HLN Now. We're going over key moments in the probable cause bond hearing we heard on Thursday. Jaw-dropping moments as the prosecutions laid out their case against the father of Cooper Harris. Little 22-month-old died in a car, basically baked to death, and his dad, Ross, is charged with his murder. One point many of you cannot get over, he's sexting while baby Cooper is in the car dying. Pam on Facebook says this, wow, this poor baby died while dad was worried about sexting with a minor. I pray he doesn't get off like Tot Mom. Billy Sue says this, he's a sick, disgusting pervert. He's only thinking of himself. Justice for Cooper. And Louise says, keep him in prison. He's a predator, not only to his own child, but others. Preying on a 16-year-old, it's a good thing. It's not my daughter. So much emotion coming against this man. Let's go back to what we heard on Thursday. Again, the topic, Justin Ross sexting while little Cooper's in a car dying.
I'm going to turn your attention and talk a little bit about motive and intent in this case and about evidence you may have uncovered regarding that. First, talking about negligence and motive. Specifically on the day of the incident, on June the 18th, 2014, in reviewing the computers and phones and things like that of the defendants, did you uncover anything of what he was doing during that day while his child was out in the car?
Yes.
Okay. What did you uncover?
He was having up to 6 different conversations with different women. It appeared from the messages from Kik mostly, which is a messaging service.
And is that a computer-related messaging service?
It is.
And these conversations he was having with these females, were these, of what nature were they?
The most common term would be sexting.
Were photos being sent back and forth between these women and the defendant during this day while the child's out in the car?
Yes, there were photos of his exposed penis, erect penis being sent. There were also photos of women's breasts being sent back to him.
Now, have you located every one of these girls that he's had contact with?
I have not.
Have you located any of them?
I've located 2 of them.
Okay. The first one, I won't use the username, but I guess, for lack of a better term, the older one.
Mm-hmm.
Did you speak with her?
I did.
And what did she say?
She stated that she had first met Ross, and she knew him as Ross through Scout, which is another messaging service, and that he had met up and that he wanted to hook up with her.
And did she talk to you and confirm the nature of what you saw on these chats back and forth?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Now, I'm going to turn your attention. Was there also another girl that you met and that you've spoken with?
I have.
And how old is that girl?
She is 17 at this time.
How old was she when the defendant began these?
Judge, I'm going to object. I mean, I let a little bit of this go, but I don't see how this has anything to do with anything.
Your Honor,
If this is something that's going on during the middle of the day, I don't think it's relevant. What would be relevant would be the time period when the child was initially left in the car.
Your Honor, this goes to negligence through the day, what he's doing through the day instead of worrying about his kid. It also goes to motive and marital problems between he and his wife and his unhappiness.
So there you go. Let's go back to one of our lawyers, Pate. Page, in a trial setting, how far will this argument go? This was probable cause where you hear everything. How much will this be reined in?
Well, it's a good question. One thing the prosecution could do is add a charge for sexual exploitation based upon the texting with the underage girl. But just like the other evidence, I think this is something the defense is going to have to deal with and deal with it early.
All right, much more key moments from Thursday. And again, our experts are standing by. Stay with us.
Now, the defendant, how did he say that he first noticed Cooper was in the car?
The first time the defendant noticed Cooper as he was driving down the road, he went to make a lane change, and he looked to his right as he was changing lanes, and that's when he noticed that Cooper was laying back there. And this was as he was driving to the movie theater.
And did he say that he drove further or he immediately pulled over?
He drove a little bit further and then immediately pulled over.
Now, during the day, based on the descriptions he gave and the paths he traveled by the, I guess, video evidence and things of that nature, would there have been other times that he would have also turned that direction during the day when he was driving that car?
That's correct.
Tell the judge a little bit about when he left work that day at 4:15, I guess 10 minutes after he got off the phone with his wife. Did he get back out to his car and linger, or how did he leave? How fast did he leave?
No, he was in the car mere seconds. He didn't take time to roll down the window or do anything along that line. In the car, mere seconds, and the car rolls off.
How hot was it that day?
I believe it was
generally?
Generally like 88 degrees, I believe, at that time.
And it had been a hot day during the entire day?
Yes, sir.
And he stated that as he pulled up, he kept the windows up.
Correct.
How long did it take from the time he closed the door to that car starting to roll?
Seconds.
So the door closes, he gets in, puts the key in, turns the ignition, starts it up, and drives off in 2 seconds.
That's correct.
Did you speak with Lieutenant Farrell in this case?
I did.
Lieutenant Farrell, what's his job?
Lieutenant Farrell's my immediate supervisor, unit commander.
Now, did he approach the car at any point at the scene?
He did.
About how long after the defendant had pulled over?
Over an hour.
And when he approached the car and stuck his head in, did he stick his head in?
He did.
When he did that, was there anything of note that he noticed an hour and 20 minutes after with the door open?
Yeah, there was a foul odor or a stench coming from the vehicle.
Now, did you actually access that vehicle later as well?
I did.
And why did you do that?
We executed a search warrant on that vehicle later on that night.
When you executed that search warrant and you went inside that vehicle hours later, did you notice anything?
Yeah, it smelled like it was a foul odor. It smelled like decomposition or death.
Many of you are commenting on that very point on our Facebook page. Sue says this on Facebook: any parent of a toddler knows he would have a dirty diaper by lunchtime, and certainly once he died, had to have smelled it. Stephanie says, how can you not smell a rotting corpse in a hot car twice? Sue says this: does he have no sense of smell? Well, what does being deaf in one ear have to do with anything? Joey Jackson, that's, again, more difficult points for the defense. You're not going to know your little guy's right here, inches away from you in that rear-facing car seat, number one. Number two, the smell of death. They're basically saying little Cooper was dead by noon.
Mike, it's very troubling, and it goes further to the issue, in my view, of depravity, a depraved heart. Why wouldn't he roll down the windows? Would it be too telling? Would he be admitting that he really plotted this from the very beginning? And so certainly, negligence, I think the prosecution certainly can establish. In my view, it's whether or not they want to elevate it to show the malice, to show the intent, to show the preparation so that they can get him for capital murder.
All right. Well, we're going to continue with more key moments from the probable cause hearing. Joey's going to take a little break. He's going to be in this seat 10 minutes from now, top of the hour. More on this case, 3 p.m. on the case. And we're going to have more in a moment with Robbie and Paige concerning, again, key moments, jaw-dropping testimony that we heard on Thursday. What's next for Ross and Leanna Harris? Coming up. Welcome back to HLN Now. Again, We're going over key moments from the probable cause hearing on Thursday. Some of the key moments involve finding out internet searches performed by Ross Harris. Again, he's charged with murder in the death of his 22-month-old Cooper Harris. Here's what some of you were saying about him searching for children dying in hot cars, animals dying in hot cars. Jill says this on Facebook. When telling his wife how Cooper looked after he had died, he said, "I dreaded how he was going to look." How in the world will he explain that statement? Willis says this: "I think both parents planned this child's death. This is not a trial. The wife should be charged with premeditated murder as well." And Ricky posted this: "Googled how to survive in prison. I hope you took good notes. R.I.P. Rest in peace, baby Cooper." So let's get back to that key point. Many of you zoning in on that, these internet searches by Ross Harris. Let's listen.
In looking at these phones and computers and things like that, were you able to examine any web searches that he may have done?
I did.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to turn your attention to the, I guess, website, Reddit, R-E-D-D-I-T for the court reporter. What is Reddit?
Reddit is it's an entertainment site, is how it bills itself. It's a social networking, news sharing, blogging type of site.
And on that are things called subreddits within the Reddit website.
They are. Subreddits are like a subculture or a specific, like or, for a person.
Basically a topic.
The topic would be a good way to put it.
Were there any topics of concern, first of all, regarding death?
Yes.
Could you tell the judge about that?
He visited several sites, and these subreddits, it was people who die. Once again, it may not be the perfect, but it's like people who die, and it shows videos of people dying. And it's in all sorts of ways, from suicides to Iraq, executions, those type of videos.
Now, anything in looking at these subreddits, turning your attention to less than 2 months before this child's death, did he go to any topics pertinent to this case and motive? And what was in his mind?
He did.
Tell the judge about what subreddit he went to pertinent to that.
He went to a subreddit. It was called Child Free. And Child Free is people who advocate living child free. They advocate not having any more children and adding to the biomass, I guess is the best way they put it.
And when he went to this subreddit, did he actually view and read articles, or did he access articles in that topic?
He did. He over 4 of them, or 4.
Again, many of us probably want to fall over in our seats when we find out child-free searches, reading 4 articles. Robbie Ludwig, you kind of hinted on this a little bit earlier, that potentially, and we're not saying this is fact or anything, but this could be some sick goodbye. I want to live child-free. Cooper, you won't have to go through the hells of life, and we'll just say goodbye now.
It almost sounds like they were justifying living child-free, only they should have thought about this before they had a child. You don't have a child and then think about how to live child-free unless you're arranging some kind of adoption or for your child to live with other family members. But then there was the financial component here that we can't forget. I think as far as the father, it's very interesting he was texting with 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. That tells me developmentally that's where this father was at. He was functionally a teenager, and teenagers want to be free, and it sounded like this man wanted to be free of any responsibility.
There you go. Hey, Paige, real quick, what do you expect in the future for Leanna Harris? An arrest or not?
Well, I do anticipate that they're looking at her. There's no reason to rush a decision. I think they'll wait until they make a decision about indicting her husband and whether it's intentional or not. She's not going anywhere, so they have time.
Okay. Paige, Robbie, guys, thanks so much. Keep it right here on The Case with Joey Jackson coming up next.